one thing remains the same: victories with 1xBet.
Hello and welcome to the HLTV Awards launch show presented by 1xBet. We are live from the Dariana event space in London with a view of the iconic Wembley Stadium just behind us. Of course, home to the Olympics all the way back in 1948, England's World Cup win back in 1966, and for all the Swifties out there, Taylor's Eras Tour coming up this weekend. But today it is all about the Counter-Strike, because we're going to be announcing the location, date and theme for the upcoming HLTV Awards 2024 alongside a very exciting new awards category too. Of course, we're going to be diving into the nitty-gritty of the top 20 and the all-important and very exciting race for number one this year. But before any of that, I think it's time we relive the magic of what went down at the HLTV Awards 2023.
Announcement that you wanted to make?
You think it's time?
Well, do you want to let the world know, or are we losing simply? Are you going to Valorant? What's happening?
No. Yeah, I decided to retire. I decided to retire from competitive scene, and I just want them to know that I'm just kidding.
Oh my days! Congratulations on Streamer of the Year for 2023, as voted by the HLTV community. Creator of the Year voted by HLTV.org. What's an honour?
It's my absolute honour to welcome you all to the HLTV Awards 2023. We are live from Belgrade, Serbia.
Yeah, it's going to be a beautiful evening, and before we start, I just want to say, you guys look amazing. Thank you for playing the game. Give a round of applause for yourself. Absolutely beautiful.
But also sad. Unfortunately, these days he's been having some issues with his alarm clock. You know, he's turning up late.
You're looking suave and sophisticated, sir.
Thank you, Pala. It's nice to hear that.
How you doing, mate?
Very good. It's not hot at all.
I still remember to this day the first time someone had the balls to use a smoke flash.
I say to everybody watching at home,
I'll keep it for the stage.
Say thank you, HLTV.com, for being a part of my life and being a part of my career.
Thanks HLTV to organize this kind of event. Your in-game leader 2023 is Apex. And the winner is Zaiwu!
And the winner is
Nico.
My ex-teammate Rain, I honestly wouldn't be sad if he would have won this as well. Thank you guys.
Nigma Galaxy.
It's Team Vitality.
And the winner is Anna.
Yeah, Player of the Year, which is the best you can get. What a great honor it is for me to give it to Mathieu Zero Herbo.
My name is Ferris Bez, of course. I'm joined by Prof, Striker, and Maniac to be announcing all the nitty-gritty details of what is going to be an incredible HLTV Awards Show 2024 presented by 1xBet. Of course, Prof, we are live from the Dariana event space. And as I teased in the opener, Taylor Swift, she's going to be gracing the halls, you know, just a few hundred meters away.
That is quite a spectacle.
Yeah.
I have witnessed it myself.
Have you?
Not here, but in a different place, and it's one of the best nights of my life, I can say.
And if you have got tickets, if you haven't got tickets, doesn't matter, because Dariana Events are doing a pre-party
right here
for Taylor Swift, right here in this very hall. So that's pretty cool if you're a big Swiftie fan. Maniac, we've had quite the journey over the past, I mean, for you, 6 months of 2024. You've been at every major event. It's been quite the ride, right?
Yeah, you're right. This season has been explosive, I think, to say the least. The Counter-Strike has been great. I am drained. I feel like I have given Counter-Strike everything I have in these 6 months. But I just have 2 more hours in me for you guys, for this amazing show we're putting together. And after that, I will hibernate, probably like a grizzly bear. You'll find me in a cave for a few weeks. But for now, it's been a crazy season.
Striker, how did you find the London life? It's been a while since we've been back here. And we're still here, obviously.
Yeah,
I mean,
for me, it was 6 years ago. I think I was here for one of the ECS seasons, I'm pretty sure.
Mm-hmm.
Or it actually might have been the major, though. That was the last one even. So it's been a while. London's actually changed quite a bit. I've been walking
Did you
around
actually
a little
get
bit.
out and about?
Little bit.
I mean,
Things have
this
changed.
whole area is
Even
completely
this,
different.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like around the.
Not completely different.
There's
but
stuff here now.
Yeah.
There are
Yeah.
restaurants.
Yeah.
There is a pub.
There's an Asian
Yeah.
market that's really cool.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah, got some soju.
Very nice. Let's get back on track to talk about the HLTV Awards. Obviously, we're all present at the 2023 Awards. So I think we should relive our favorite moments. We got a great selection in that video as well. But Matthew, to start off with, what was your favorite moment of the awards?
I think it must have been the red carpet. I think it was the entrance, the whole limousine trip, then into the venue. We have a couple of images, beautiful images out there. Just seeing everybody dressed up to the nines, smiling, enjoying themselves. And there was like this euphoric feeling in the air. Like nobody's here to be stressed. We're the only ones that are stressed trying to put together a show. Everybody is just enjoying themselves. So many nice conversations. The vibes were immaculate. And I think this is how it kind of set the emotional tone for the night for me. And I will never forget that moment, just walking into the venue. That's definitely up there for me.
Because at the same time that, everyone was arriving, you guys were already starting the show
Yeah.
in the lobby, right?
Yeah,
That must have been a vibe.
I don't think I got a picture on the red carpet.
Oh.
Actually.
I didn't either.
Yeah.
Oh, that's on the list for the next
That's
one.
that's a mistake. That's a mistake for sure. But like, I'm not surprised that you picked the red carpet for your favorite. Like,
You mind
It's kind of
expanding what you mean
You
or
being
elaborate?
The well-dressed man that you are, obviously.
the suit
you guys.
connoisseur and everything that goes with it.
I appreciate it. I remember I was fixing, what was I fixing? Your,
I think my little bow tie.
yeah, your bow tie before we went
Yeah,
live.
yeah,
That's
thank
the
you for
whole,
that.
the whole operation.
Who was the best dressed, in your opinion, Matthew? I'm sure you were looking.
Well, I got to say, I'm partial to people who take risks, and I thought Nico looked pretty nice in that sand, like light brown suit he had with the white shirt underneath.
It was like open as well.
Yeah,
like
there's something
smart
going on. I mean,
cash.
to be fair, also he's got fabulous hair. Something I'm terribly jealous of right now, as you can imagine. I think he looked fantastic. Not shy of a nice watch as well here and there for the connoisseurs. So yeah, I think Nico was up there.
He nailed it. Striker, what about you? What was your fave moment?
I mean, I'll backtrack a little bit. I think it's also about the people for me, just the day leading up to the event. I mean, just going into the hotel and just immediately seeing CS faces all around. It's not just an esports like award show. It is Counter-Strike award show, and it's like always bumping into somebody and you haven't seen for a long time, and just walking around the hotel, being there for the mixer, all that stuff. I mean, you just keep running into people all the time, and you're like catching up with everybody, and that's just what made this show so special. It was like 200 people or so that were really mostly purely Counter-Strike people, which is just amazing.
Yeah, some nice reunions. There's like Shocks
Oh,
and
yeah.
Smiths.
The whole
We
French
got-
connection,
We
French
got
scene was there.
Dennis and Spiddy. We got some of these names that are not at events that often anymore, and reunited. We had a nice Stana photo there as well.
As always.
Yeah,
As we should. Every time.
You guys have made quite an effort because you had like name tags and everything for that
yeah,
remixer. That was cool.
It was maybe overkill doing the name tags, but and half the people didn't sign up. You know how these things happen.
Had the wrong names on.
Yeah, you could do whatever you want.
What about you, Prof? What was your highlight?
For me, it was the after party, and obviously biased because I kind of organized everything. But I can say this is my favorite thing for two reasons. First reason is like the after part. It's happening after everything's kind of done, so the stress is out of it. Secondly, because people really enjoyed it, we did kind of have a mixture of everything. Obviously booze. We had some food. We had some nice, music going on, but we also had some more chill vibes going on. We had some
you chilling out there?
some games. Yeah, as soon as everything was over, the suit was off. I'm like going full.
I know.
Full. I don't have any responsibility.
I made such a mistake. I went straight from the award to that party with the tuxedo on and everything. And it survived the night. It survived the night. Everything is alive. All is great. Just nothing an actual pressing couldn't fix, just to clean it up a little bit. But it did survive. Inexplicably, really, because I was out there with Apex just absolutely losing my mind. So I don't know how the tux is still alive, but it is.
It was one of my favorite Counter-Strike after parties, esports after parties. I'll put it at that because there was so much to do. Right? Did you ever go on there was a claw machine? Lucy was trying to win me something on that.
You know what? I'll take your word for it.
Yeah,
I'll take your word for it.
You don't have any memories of that much. Shocking.
Up until a moment, and then after that, it was morning.
It was amazing. I think for my money, I'd say the photo exhibit That
Okay.
was kind of my favorite, extracurricular thing that was going on around the award show. I think it's just, highlighting the amazing job of all the photographers over the years, right? It was a real walk down memory lane, Matthew, because we get to see so many amazing moments. And then because we're going from event to event to event, sometimes I'm kind of guilty of just kind of forgetting how much we've been through. And this really just kind of epitomized it for me.
I mean, you're absolutely right. There's only so much you can just keep in your mind at all time. And I think that the history and like the depth that we're having in terms of experience of Counter-Strike is sometimes it just feels good to reflect on it. And when we are caught in a moment and like stimulus response going to event, arenas and all, you kind of lose track of that. So walking in these halls and seeing pictures of 2014, 2015, different faces, different jerseys, different moments, and you start realizing, hey, we're building something. Like we're part of something extraordinary that's being built over the years. And in 20, 30 years, we'll have these conversations at the table. It's like, Granddad, tell me about the beginning of Counter-Strike. It all started under tables, sleeping in like whatever arenas, and then suddenly we were there at the award show.
And I think that's kind of the general idea of the top 20 and the award show in general, just kind of commemorating the greatness, because in Counter-Strike we were very easily get just swept away. But what happened last week and everything before that is not relevant. We can look at just Navi this year. They win the major, which is it is the biggest thing you can win in Counter-Strike, but 2 weeks later they don't win the tournament and everyone's like,
change lineup.
You're shit, right? And maybe they are shit, maybe they should change the lineup, but they still won a major and no one can take that away.
Things go
So
fast.
that's kind of what we're trying to do with the award show.
Whose idea was it for the photo exhibit?
Yeah, so it was mine to kind of bring something that's physical to the event, to have something that is not done, so making exhibit made sense. We have a lot of photos going back to even 1.6, right? So I pushed for that, and I got a bit of pushback from Martin. He's like, what are we going to do with all of this? And then he's like, okay, we can do it, but we have to make a book as well. So then we made a book.
I feel like you won from
Yeah,
that on all accounts.
Huge win-win, actually.
I mean, we saw even at the last event in Dallas, I think a lot of people, we had some books on sale over there, and a lot of people were just going around having it signed by the people who were on the photos. And like, I saw so many people posting that, and like even players just signing books left and right and their favorite moments and all that stuff.
I should definitely get mine signed. Like I have the possibility to get almost every page
You could.
signed by people that are in the photos.
Yeah. That'd be
sick.
So
Yeah,
would
get
be
all of
kind
the
of a nice
signatures.
little memorabilia moment.
Scrawny said that was one of his favorite moments.
Yeah.
Somebody, I think, came up to him here. I think it was Scrawny, and asked for to sign his head.
He
on
said
one of the pictures.
his mom
the
cried
head?
when she looked.
Really?
So I don't know.
That's so lovely.
Yeah.
Oh, making memories. I mean, speaking of photos, you guys have started a Twitter and Instagram for the HLTV Awards. That is at HLTV Awards. No post yet though, Prof. What's the first post going to be?
I don't know. Maybe a picture of you. I think that's sure to get us some likes. That's how it works.
Thanks, Prof.
You're doing great, Prof. You're doing great.
I mean, I'm just saying, if I
nailing
post a
it.
picture of myself, it's not going to be that.
We're gonna arrange that. Why don't we make it a picture of all of us together?
Yeah.
Could be the 0.5 I just did. 'Cause I
Yeah.
did that first, Maui Snake. Don't you come for me. That was my idea. Yeah, I mean, should we dive into things? Because we've got a lot to announce today. There's going to be a date, there's going to be a location, and there's a theme this year, Prof. So I think we should dive straight into this and discover a little bit more about the HLTV Awards 2024.
For 2 decades, the foundations have been laid. Blood, sweat and tears. Legacies made. The battleground evolves. But the game never changes. Do you hunger for the challenge? Can you withstand the heat? The past is immovable. History can still be made. These are new beginnings.
Okay, so it is official. We are going back to Belgrade, Serbia. Was it an easy choice for you? Because it seemed pretty successful, right, this year?
Yeah, I mean, that's what nudged us into doing it again. Obviously, finding a new location is a lot of work. Last year was a big success, and we were thinking, like, why not just improve on what we did? stay there for another year before like exploring some other locations and just make it even better, right? In all aspects.
Same hotel as well?
Yeah,
Same place?
same hotel, same venue.
Ooh, like
It was a nice hotel.
Yeah, 10 out of 10. I'll
Yeah.
go back.
So, you know, we can obviously work on improving the show, having like everything a bit more polished, knowing the setup that we can use and maybe improve some certain things and just make it an amazing experience. Obviously, still the same limit in terms of how many people can come. So,
of course,
I'm expecting it to be, you know, a bit of a
race.
bit of a race. For us.
How easier is it to do it like a second time around in the same place? Like how quick is the learning curve when you get to a new venue? You got to figure everything out, like from a technical standpoint.
I mean, it's months, right?
Yeah.
It's like going to a city. Searching online, finding locations, going there, checking them in real life, finding if there's even a date available, finding the limitations and everything. It's months of work that we can now put into polishing some other aspects and doing stuff like this, right?
Any thoughts, Striker? Are you happy to be going back to Serbia?
Yeah, I mean, I took the drive over there because it's about, I think, 6 hours.
Of
6-hour car drive
course.
for me because it just doesn't make sense for me to go to an airport where I'm going to have to wait for 2 hours and I have to be on a flight for an hour and a half. Might as well just drive. So for me, it couldn't be easier.
Were there any other locations that were, you know, tempting for you? Were you even thinking about anywhere else?
Yeah, I mean, we did look into different locations around Europe, but you know, just kept with the tried and tested. And obviously, we also have a good cooperation with Relog there, who also offer boot camps that we gave to teams that can prepare for the start of the season. I think, consider the RMRs are not in January this time, it's going to be even better and easier for teams to come in, right? So. And the visa issue also, and Schengen days, as you know yourself, are also
heard about
an
it,
aspect
right?
that are really nice in Belgrade.
We have a theme this year as well. Want to tell us more about that?
Yeah, we came up with a theme called New Beginnings. It makes sense from different points of view. Obviously, we're in a new game, which is a new beginning in itself. There's a bunch of players that are breaking through. Obviously, we have a very exciting race for the number one, potential new number one. So a new beginning, maybe a new era of a very dominant player. Who knows? Obviously, we had Simple in CSGO. I think everyone agrees that he was the best. But in CS2, that the discussion is kind of opened, right? There's also a new beginning for some players. I think Device going from being the star opera into IGL. Nico now kind of flirting with this. Who knows what's going to happen? Maybe it's their step, and we'll use this team to make content, to invite guests. Maybe the announcers who are making a new step into a new part of esports, for example, and kind of play off of it a bit, because it's you can only invite Get Right so many times.
Any thoughts, Matthew?
I mean, new format as well. Like, we're jumping with Counter-Strike, the whole calendar, the whole ecosystem is about to change. Obviously, that's not going to be for this year, but I like the way you're looking at it. Turning a new page and put it out for a new book, maybe in a decade.
Maybe.
This might be, a tricky question to ask right now, but you say, you want to add some new things, improve things, anything like you want to tease, anything you hope to have in the works? I know we're teasing a lot here already.
Yeah, well, a lot of the things that we have in mind is just in terms of making the stage a bit nicer, so you guys can shine a bit better on it, that even though it worked pretty well last time. A lot of little things, especially in terms of attending the show in person. I know the claw machine that you mentioned was a big success. I think we can expand on some of these little activities in the hotel, in the venue, some different exhibitions maybe and stuff like that.
I have a request, boss,
Oh,
for the next. If we were to work that event for the host in presence, would be nice if we could hear the videos happening.
Okay.
That would be so nice.
Yeah.
I remember we were like, the speeches were so great, and I was trying to take off my ears. Like, what did he say? Oh my God, everyone is laughing. Oh, that must have been amazing. Not exactly sure what happened.
The venue was actually fire, though.
great.
Like, it was a really good balance of that there was, a big enough space, but it still felt kind of intimate, right? We were able to interact with the crowd a lot. Obviously, Parla was giving
James
us a
Banks in
helping
the crowd,
hand.
you're going to interact with the crowd.
My God.
You cannot.
Yeah.
He will heckle you during the show.
Well, Matthew, there is an opportunity, right, for people, maybe outside the industry, people who were watching at home last time to get involved, right? A bit of Willy Wonka action.
You're
I guess.
absolutely correct. Have you guys heard of the golden ticket? That's what's happening right now. If you follow the link that's happening below my little face over there, there is a fan who will have the chance, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to not only be invited to the event, but also have the flight and the hotel covered, of course, courtesy of HLTV. So you have all the information on that link. I would like you to come. I had a good time there. I think you're going to have a good time too. So click on that link, look for the information, and we'll talk about it a bit later.
If anybody needed convincing, I think that is exactly what we
And
needed. Just
I
straight
spoke
down the barrel.
only truth. Only truth.
It's so true. I mean, it is actually like, it's a proper once in a lifetime experience.
It
Like,
is.
there's so many amazing people from Counter-Strike there. And of course, if you're part of the industry, Prof, it's open now, right, for registration?
Of course, yeah. People can head to HLTV.org/awards, where they can register for an invite for the show. Obviously, some people might have already received an email. We sent out some early bird invitations. We'll be rolling out more and more invites over time. But yeah, if you're within the esports and Counter-Strike industry, don't hesitate to apply, and actually apply as soon as possible, because you need to book your seat at a very limited event.
This is time to put some peer pressure on, Matthew. Anybody that was missing, that you wanted to attend? I think FaZe were missing.
FaZe were missing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess these guys would maybe be more equipped to answer that question. I was so overwhelmed by everybody that's here. Like, I didn't have any attention span for who isn't. I was like, at this moment, no memory, just watching people being excited. So yeah, FaZe weren't here. Who else was missing, like high profile?
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
I mean,
through.
from the maybe top, not the current top, but I was hoping to get a few more of the Frenchies to get like a big Very Games or
have
NBA
like a
reunion.
Tribe, no?
Yeah,
Tribe
but
already.
I was hoping maybe for a Happy Year in Existence. They couldn't, or a Scream.
We'll get Existence.
These are the names.
I'll fly myself to Belgium.
Okay.
To convince him to come for the next one.
Yeah.
Pick him up on the way.
Yeah.
I'll just put in my backpack.
Fifth Lauren.
Oh, Fifi. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the most loved people in Counter-Strike.
For him, it's a bit of a flight.
It's a bit of a
trek,
It's
yeah,
a bit of a
but
flight.
it's worth it. If you're listening to us right now, Fifi, it is worth it. But maybe we should dive into the nitty-gritty a little bit more of just how the voting works and how the awards are going to be announced. So let's dive into it.
Every year we celebrate the best in Counter-Strike, and this year is no different. The HLTV Awards, Panel Awards and Community Awards are handed out to honour those who have excelled throughout the year. But how are each of these awards decided? Well, let us explain. The Community Awards. For each of these categories, the power lies with you, the fans. First up, a nominee list is created based on performances during the year, taking into account statistical data. Then those with a HLTV account can vote for their favourites. Most votes wins. Simple. We've even sneaked in a new award for the skin makers, the Panel Awards. This is where we bring in the experts. These awards are decided by a 35-person panel. This consists of 20 players or coaches from the HLTV top 20 teams of the year, 10 talent members, and 5 members of the HLTV staff. Firstly, HLTV staff creates a nominee list of up to 10 potential players to vote for, based on statistical analysis and role criteria. Then, each panelist votes for 3 players, ranking them from 3rd to 1st, where they're given 1, 3, or 5 points respectively. Finally, points are tallied up, and the winner for each category is decided. The HLTV Awards. These awards are decided by HLTV staff, just like the top 20 since 2010. Statistics, awards, consistency, and sample size. These are the main components of choosing the best players of the year. To be the very best, you must be putting up big numbers at the big tournaments, consistently against big opposition. For the Rookie of the Year, it's the best performing player with fewer than 30 maps versus top 20 opposition on LAN, fewer than 5 big event appearances, no appearances at the Legend stage of a major, and fewer than 20 weeks in the top 20 HLTV ranking. Age doesn't matter. And finally, the Teams of the Year. We take the HLTV World Ranking and sprinkle in a formula that combines a core's raw total points gained and their average point gain per event. And that's it, the HLTV Awards 2024 explained.
Okay, very comprehensive overview indeed. Just a quick note on Rookie of the Year. We do want to explain that is for the previous year, right? So you might have been panicking thinking, is Donk still in the running? He is. He is still in the running. All is good in the world.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. The limitations are for the previous year. If you played a major, let's say playoffs or something like that, then the next year you're probably not a rookie, right? So this is kind of what happened last year with Donk, why he wasn't considered for a rookie.
I know
of the year.
we actually had to address the situation. It took a few seconds to explain because I could see people with the absolute forks coming at me already. Where is Donk? Like, everybody relax. We're not nominating him now, so he can win next year. That's what we're doing, basically.
So the voting is pretty much the same as it has been in previous years, right? For each different, the Community Awards, Panel Awards, HLTV Awards, similar formula.
Yeah, same kind of formula. I don't know if we're going to have actual 35 teams for the panel one 35 people for the panel awards this year. If it's going to be slightly more, slightly less, maybe that's going to be a little bit different. But generally, the idea is the same, yeah.
You were part of the panel last year, weren't you, Matthew?
I am. How do you think I would win these awards? The man's got to work, right? I was just voting, voting every voting machine. No, absolutely. I'm part of the panel.
And a new awards category, skin. That's cool. Whose idea was that?
I don't know, actually. It came from within the team. Let's say it was definitely not my idea. I'm not like a big skins guy, but the team was like, okay, let's expand to something. Let's see what else we can add. And obviously, skins are a huge part of the community and a huge part of why we are where we are. As Counter-Strike, the skin cases and everything that came with it, the good and the bad, but it definitely helped grow Counter-Strike, so this is our opportunity to give back to the creators of the best skins of the year.
Yeah, for the more artistic side, the creative side. I love
that. It changed our life in Counter-Strike. Like, I'm not saying skins only came with positives, but they changed our life. They changed the landscape, changed the magnitude, so yeah, I'm pretty excited. I have myself a newly found interest in skin in general. Stumbled upon a stream, an artist was creating a weapon, talking about it for a process, and I just learned about it. I was like, just actually hypnotizing, loving it.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I mean, maybe this can be the first retweet on the HLTV Awards Twitter. If you guys at home, make sure you tweet. If you've got any skins that you want to see in the running, tweet at HLTV Awards and maybe get a retweet. I don't know. Should we dive into previous winners from years gone by? I think maybe we should get started on that because 2021, it was your first foray into trying to do, a live show for this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Started off small, but it was fun. It was really good.
It was fun. It was a weird time. It was like the end of COVID era, right? Can you travel? Can you invite people? Can you not? What's gonna go on? And we started small, just 3 awards. Obviously, we did the Player of the Year, which is the continuation of the top 20. And I had added the Highlight of the Year, which we have been doing, and also Team of the Year. All of the awards that we have been doing on HLTV through like articles, and like Striker can tell more about that, right? Nothing really crazy. We actually had Kadian show up because we did it in Denmark in a little studio. Not the smoothest show, I can say. We had some call-ins from the number 1, number 2, number 3 players, and there were some issues. I can say one of them was very unhappy having to wait 45 minutes on a call. But it came through in the end, and it was fun. Navi sent a very funny video back then with the cash, the whole suit briefcase of money that they got for Monacy. So kind of a nice year.
How hard was it to decide who was number 1 that year? Striker, if you can remember.
Was that pretty clear cut? 21.
Was it clear cut?
I think 2021 was very clear cut. I mean, it was Navi's year, it was Simple's year. It was probably, I think, even to this day, the most dominant year that we've seen from a single player. Maybe not single team, because obviously there's Astralis before that, but from a single player, probably the most dominant year individually.
I mean, the major in Stockholm, that was just absolutely out of this world.
I mean, you know that you have an easy job when the guy drops 140 ratings, and when it comes to playoffs, not even just across the board, he literally dropped better ratings in playoffs than in the entire year. So yeah, that's when you have a GOAT.
And highlight of the year was Kadian winning Pro League, right? Obviously,
remember that?
couldn't
have won Pro League like this.
Yeah, they could not have done it like this. 2022, things got a little bit bigger. Unfortunately, couldn't attend because it was in the EU and
thanks to
Brexit.
Yeah,
let's just park the bus there. But this is awesome. Like the amount that you guys expanded. How, just from like a logistics point of view, like how much more work was this compared to 2021? Because it looked like a hell of a lot more.
Infinitely more, because there is so much to decide in terms of like all of the awards, that how we decide them now has pretty much been set up for this year, right? Doing the panel awards, doing some of these additional awards, the women's awards. Obviously, that was kind of a big expansion thanks to ESL Impact having like a circuit for the teams, right? So there's a lot of work in that regard, and just inviting people, having people attend, that was a huge question mark. Who will do it? Who would want to do it, and stuff like that. But thankfully we got Navi to go there, we got Kerrigan, and a few big faces.
And also it was kind of a challenge to even decide how to expanded in terms of the panel awards, because of course that was an entirely new concept that we brought into the question for 2022. That's of course that stayed for 2023. We're also heading into 2024 going to be doing the same, but that was there was a lot of back and forth involved about what the roles going to look like, because all that was very up in the air and very hard to define at that time. But yeah, we got there.
Kind of crazy to see Manasi as Rookie of the Year.
Exactly about that.
Mental.
Literally stole the
Highlight
words.
of the year as well. Yeah.
Rookie of the Year in 2022. Can you
Feels
imagine?
like he's been with us for so long.
I know, it's a feeling we
wild.
have now. But it hasn't been that long that we have them, honestly.
2023, of course, it was only what six months ago that we did this,
It
and
feels like
expanded
ages.
even more. We've had a lot happen right since then, but the whole kind of right-hand side column, Prof. These were all kind of new additions because this was the community awards, right?
Yes, yeah. Obviously, it's some of these things we wanted to give credit to even before, like talent of the year or like any on-screen personality, and how you want to approach that is like it's very subjective, right? And everyone has different, I would say, not allegiances but connections. So if we did it internally, it'd be like, we were voting for Sponge because we work with Sponge or we work with you guys. So we wanted to make it completely isolated from that and just have it be open to the community. And yeah, Chad still won.
He was absolutely dreading that. Like
Yeah.
he did not want to win so badly. It was
not great for him as the host of the
Having
it was
to
like,
give yourself the medal.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, so I had the envelope, but like it was. Yeah, it was
we were lucky that we had Banks and Scrawny there, and they were like, okay, let's join and like chit chat a bit. And Banks was like, I think, I don't know, like 10 votes away from winning or something.
Oh, really? You
it was
knew how many votes
It
was
was
in it?
insanely close. It was
Wow.
insanely close, right? So it's it was nice to see.
I think Paris getting Event of the Year as well. That was, I mean, super well deserved. Great send off for CS:GO. Seems kind of wild that it was. I
The one
mean, just
major
over
as
a
well.
year ago,
Yeah,
right?
that was the one major, and what a year for Vitality as well. For you, we'll always have Paris. Like that's what that's what you have to keep in mind right now. That things are getting a little bit bumpier. You can always look back with nostalgia to 2023 and all of the awards they've won.
That's the next DSL skit, I think, the Casablanca.
We'll work something out with Vitality.
Speaking of Vitality success, Matthew, what's your favorite category of 2023? Tell me.
Oh, okay. I know what you're doing here. I see what you're doing here, and I know why it's going to sound absolutely unbiased. But for me, it always will be Player of the Year, and I think there's even like an emotional connection to it because as a player, when I was a professional, and we saw the development of the HLTV rankings, it was incredible how it quickly established itself as the biggest accolade you could have as an individual. Like it took life of its own. Might have started as just like an interesting list to talk about, but it turned into an actual phenomenon that people will debate passionately about. I'm sure friendships have been ruined because of who ends up number one, whether it's normal or not, whether it's rigged or not. So for me, it will always be Player of the Year. I think it's the award that I wait patiently every time. And the fact that it was Saiwu getting the third, that, let's just say, it didn't bother me. I was pretty okay with it. I personally have a lot of skin in that game. I've made some pretty strong claims about Saiwu taking all of the personal records he could possibly have in the next 4 years now. So I'm counting. I need them to come in.
Just quickly, the stance on the CSGO GOAT.
CSGO?
Yeah, the
No,
GOAT of CSGO.
Yeah, because you said simple earlier.
I don't think he has a body of work enough to get that in CSGO. But what I do is I do this like mental gymnastic where I open the borders of Counter-Strike in terms of versions, and I say he will go down as the greatest of Counter-Strike.
Okay,
That's
okay.
it. No, but that's
What, just
my mental.
Counter-Strike period?
That's my mental gymnastics. You know, that's what you call that.
I thought
How
the
did
mental.
you end up there?
Sorry.
How did you end up there? The greatest of all Counter-Strike.
All of
just
the
period.
Counter-Strikes, yeah, but over time, you need to be patient, right? It's not there quite yet.
So it's even projecting into the future.
Oh,
It's not even
absolutely.
what's happened so far.
I'm
It's like-
absolutely projecting. I'm
Okay.
completely projecting.
Fair
Full on
enough.
hopium.
This man's
Fair
got
enough.
a crystal ball. How close was it for Zaiwu being number
I
one?
mean, honestly,
that
the
year?
last 2 years have not been the most. There was not the most suspense for those 2 years. I think Zaiwu was also relatively obvious if you look at the year. Again, a Vitality year through and through, and Zaiwu was dominant through it as well. So there was not really a big discussion. There was a decent gap.
The bottom though was kind of interesting though. I mean, the
Yeah.
Rups, Nico, what's going to happen? He
Monassi.
does
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
I personally, I was not capable, because now you guys are doing this amazing like sort of prediction game on HLTV. I didn't have a whole lot of right between like 2 and 7. I had the right names, but where they would end up being was kind of a question up in the air.
That was probably the biggest, the hardest thing to decide between the 2 and 5, because those, there was a lot to unpack there, who was going to be where. But yeah, I mean, the number one, not so much in that
How
case.
do you actually come to a decision like that? Because obviously this is HLTV, this is just you guys deciding this. So, like, I kind of want to ask, like, what's been the biggest bone of contention? Like, maybe from the past year, was there one where you were like really adamant that should have been higher, should have been lower?
Already.
You know what?
I actually don't know the answer, but that's a great question.
That is a good question. But honestly, all three of us who are on the panel or committee, we call it, for the top 20, and as a result, player of the year, we obviously talk back and forth about certain things, but like we also spot different things. We have a little bit of a different angle about certain things. So it's more of like completing a picture. We really didn't have such a big contention over like one single player. There was a lot of just not arguing, but more reasoning about why that player should be above that player and all that stuff. And then we just end up actually in a way where, since it's 3 people, it can be 2 against 1. So it's
a democracy.
Are you trying to influence your colleague to try and get him to the dark side to you, like inviting on dinner? Like, come on, man, let's have dinner. Let's talk about this.
Yeah, exactly. No,
Hear me
I
out.
mean, we are pretty reasonable, all of us, and we understand the legacy of the top 20, how it's been decided, what we've always put the bigger focus on. So there's not so much space for subjectivity in the discussion.
Okay, so in terms of like the stats, the data, what is something that you would like favor a bit more than another statistic, right? Are we talking like placements? Is it individual rating? Like, what is kind of the crack when you're looking at maybe the different categories as well? Because I imagine it differs when you're looking at an opener versus just overall player versus closer.
I mean, that doesn't actually come into the discussion at all. Like what role the player is occupying. You know, we obviously can't put any stock into people who are IGLing, because we also don't know how much of that success comes from that, how much of it was other people calling. Like, all this stuff is so subjective that, and also role wise, you know, how do you decide which role is more important than the other? Of course, some of them are going to have heavier output, and that's also going to be reflected in statistics, and that's obviously usually the people who will be somewhere to the top. You know, oppers obviously historically have been the most influential position in terms of statistics. Outside of, I mean, just general stats alone, it would be kind of what was actually explained in the explainer a little bit, I don't know, 10, 20 minutes ago, where it is really important for you to play against like good opposition consistently, because if you don't, then the sample size is too small. We can't really say, like, even if you constantly drop 120 ratings in groups, but then just never play against the better teams, then of course we're going to have to look at that and say, okay, but you haven't been tested enough. You know, you haven't actually done it against the best under the biggest pressure in all the arenas in the playoffs. I think that's what people possibly get wrong the most times about top 20, is like, it's about results, but for us it's actually the opposite. I mean, for us it's about once you get into the playoffs, that's where you will get tested more, and so the further you get, the further you get tested, rather than that just by the fact that you actually made it that far, you deserve more than another player who didn't, you know. So it's more from that aspect.
Okay, interesting.
It's kind of weird that people don't understand, they kind of get it wrong, considering they also understand like group stage farming and stuff like this, but they don't understand like it's important to then actually do well and go into the playoffs so you can prove that you are not a group stage farmer. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's also like, we also understand that most people will drop off, like when you go up against top 5, when you go up against in the playoffs, because you will tend to play better teams as you go further in the tournament, you know, and all that stuff. But then there are players who break that, like, you know, Rob's last year. That was the big reason why he ended up so high, is just because he actually did play better as the tournament gone along, you know. So he was such a big influential player in their deep runs that's what we needed to also reward in some way. And then that is just, of course, like the biggest the thing that matters most is first of all majors, of course, but like playoffs of majors, finals of majors, like when you do that's obviously a big thing. But generally in the arenas, you know, in the big playoffs where you are under the lights, you are under the most pressure, playing against the best teams, that's what matters most.
Totally makes sense. I feel like I'm grilling you at the moment, Striker.
That's okay.
You, what was your favorite award category?
I would say
that
that's
the blocks, right?
What's right?
You go a bit outside the box with this one.
I am going a little bit outside of the box because I'm not actually picking necessarily the category, but more the presenter. You know, it is a serious award show, of course. We want to commemorate the best players, the best highlights and all that stuff. This is, I think, highlight of 2022. But I did want to just put Snacks in the spotlight because, you know, bringing in all these presenters, it just brings out some of their character, and Snacks is obviously one. He definitely took it to heart that maybe we don't have to take ourselves so seriously all the time. And I mean, it just projected itself into his little speech that he made. It was very good.
Little
Very
stand-up
funny.
comedy.
No,
there.
it really was. So much charisma as well.
He's great. Absolutely love Snacks. What about you, Prof? What was your favorite?
For me, it was last year's IGL of the year because Apex obviously won it. And I think even leading up to it, you could see through, you know, little comments that he made during the year or like little conversations that I managed to have with him that he was really aiming to win this trophy and how much it meant to him. And I think this is one of the nice things about the HLTV Awards is that we get to do some of these, you know, underappreciated role awards, right? And this is one where he can finally get some recognition for all the sacrifices, all the good work that he's been doing in teams, and especially in Vitality, and like how much he was scrutinized and how little was expected out of him when he moved to the agile role, and then what he managed to accomplish last year.
And it still is. It's such a cryptic category. It's like coach for me. It's the same because you
Yeah,
can
of course.
see, you know, if a closer is good, he is winning clutches. If an opener is good, he's getting you entries. Like there's like this material, very clear state of reality in front of you. Whereas for IGL, then where we're talking about results, of course, but then we try and peek behind the curtains. You try and get snippets from the players. Here and there now, events are starting to do these like voice check-ins where we get to like live listen to what's happening. But it is still, I feel like, complicated and a category that will always create some sort of debate around like, oh, you know, what kind of players does he have and how many decisions is he making? And oh my God, he's got an incredible coach behind him. Like this will never be clear cut. And I think that's why I think it's a great pick, Mr. Prof.
Yeah, I mean, there are certainly some players that have said like, you know, the best IGL is the player, is the guy that has the best player in this team. And I don't think that's the truth, and I don't think that I don't think that will always play out that way. And we'll see, you know, in theory, it could have been, you know, are people thinking that Hooksy is the best IGL because like Monas is playing very well, or that Chopper is the best IGL because Donk is playing? I don't think that is true right now, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's a bit more nuance to it.
Perfect segue into what we're going to talk about next. My favorite category. This was opener of the year, just because I mean, just looking from kind of outside perspective, we had kind of 2-3 different generations of player in here. Obviously Rain was up there. I'd say he's kind of the veteran, obviously staple of FaZe Clan. Nico, and then Exertion as well. Nico winning on home soil, I think, was a nice little touch. He seemed very happy to get up there, didn't he, Matthew?
Oh no, really, it was nice to see him there. And I think it's great to give again the recognition to a role that famously in Counter-Strike is not easy at all.
Yeah.
I have the feeling that it is a pretty recent development that we have these openers who are capable of having incredible numbers as well and turning into stars. Like from the days that, I mean, we even have lived, an entry was supposed to be like a piece of ham. Like you just throw it in, everyone's like, hey, good luck to you, little boy. Like try and get one, please jump. And it's a role that has perfected itself very much over the last few years. And now we have players who are capable of doing that. The best players in that category, and I'm foreshadowing here because we'll touch on it down the line in the show, but these are already the players that are the best overall, that are capable of doing this. So from a Counter-Strike perspective, I absolutely love it.
And it is curious, especially with CS2, you know, we've seen all this about, you know,
the Peaker's advantage
and all that stuff. So, but we have seen, I mean, there is some correlation to it. I mean, we've seen Xertion have some really nice tournaments, you know, obviously, as
Apex
you were saying.
is better now too
Donk,
individually. That's
you know,
not...
some of these players who maybe previously had a harder time seem to have an easier one doing it. So, yeah.
You just got to swing, just got a white swing.
That's what everybody says, at least.
That's all you got to do. Matthew, I think we can get into it actually right now. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of the show, because we're going to be looking at some of the front runners of the categories, because we're kind of at the mid portion of the year now, and you guys at home, make sure you're voting on the Twitch chat poll as well. We'll be discussing, seeing if you agree, disagree, maybe come with some arguments ready in the chat too. Let's start off with opener of the year. Take a look at the front runners for that. We've got 5 possible options to be kind of looking at and seeing how the year has gone so far. There's one very obvious one so far, isn't there, Matthew?
I'm gonna strike it. I'm gonna put you on the spot if you don't mind.
Of course.
Do you mind explaining to me why the second best entry fragger of this year on LAN is not on that list right now?
Can you elaborate on who you think that is?
Zybo has the second highest rating in entry frag of 2024.
Fair enough.
Why is he not on that list?
I mean, you can't really considering him an opener, considering he's an opera as well. So like from that
but that's
perspective,
the trick. He is
yeah,
too.
of course,
he is too.
He is the same, right? No, but yeah, that's not necessarily.
It's okay.
How
You
it
have
works.
time. Yeah, we have time to figure that out. I just thought I would point that out now
enough.
before we get to Belgrade.
Yeah.
As the lawyer of Mr. Elbow, which is my duty to assure that his.
How much are you
interests
charging for
protected.
this little,
I do not,
appeal?
I
would
do
say.
not kiss and tell. I don't
Okay.
reveal the numbers.
Right.
Okay. This is a private conversation.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, I also wanted to point out that like we are putting up the top 5 that we think may be in the lead at the moment, but there's still half a year left to play. So somebody who's just behind that, people will be looking at like why Elige isn't on this list, or maybe perhaps Town now that Astralis have also had a bit of a string of success. Like if they keep going in a direction like this for the second half of the year, there's no reason why they wouldn't be able to kind of like come from behind and like be able to get into that top 3. And also, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just want to say, obviously, these are also panel awards. So we go up to 10 players for each category, depending on, if there's more of a competition, then there's going to be more players in the cutoff, and then they're going to be voted mostly by fellow players, right? 20 of the 35 last year were, pro players, IGLs, or captains of teams or coaches that voted on who they think is best in this role, right? So, but just looking at these players, Donk, don't need to use too many words on this. We've been talking about it the whole time, all the time. But exertion has been insane. Nico's resurgence, I think, really good. And honestly, like Flames T side, because we're talking about the opener role, we're talking mostly about the T side. He's been great. He's been great this year.
I would agree. I mean, Xantaras, I guess, is the outlier. I'm surprised to see him up there just because they have Eternal Fire haven't necessarily made like deep runs.
Well, they had the major, of course. They had where they went to the playoffs.
True.
That's actually where Xantaras has an EVP. So like he's a major EVP now. So that's obviously that speaks a lot to his case. It's kind of interesting, that whole kind of situation around Xantaras, because he famously missed out just barely on a place in the top 20 in 2020. I think he's now 28, so he's somewhere up there in age now, where not a lot of players have made it past this age to the top 20. But he seems to be possibly having a year where, just because of Eternal Fire actually being able to play at a lot of these tournaments, he could be somewhere in the discussion, where he could make it this year, so deep into his career, which is it is interesting.
I don't know. I agree with you, but I really hope that Eternal Fire remain like relevant in these events. We've had the feeling, I think, the community, that they broke through at the beginning of Q1 of this year, but now I think the hype is dying down just a little bit. So I hope they remain part of that elite Counter-Strike, because then he would have a number to put.
Yeah, I mean, in Yella they went out very quickly. There was not much to do for them. Yeah.
Moving on to closer of the year, what options have we got for the 5 front runners of this very prestigious category? Or Brolin, Frozen, Yimfat, JL, and Zontix. Ooh, that's hard.
This is a good category.
Yeah, but now we have recency bias now, because I still have the images in my mind of Zontix and what he was capable of doing in London this weekend. Some of these moves, holy hell.
And it's funnily enough, that's actually kind of what made him make the push into the top 5. Because,
I imagine.
There's like Rops just on the outskirts of that category that people will probably see like, why isn't Rops on this? But of course, Rops hasn't been the Rops that we saw from all the way at the beginning of CS2. And so that's kind of what cost him a place at the moment, especially now that Zontix actually had an EVP to his name in London. We haven't necessarily announced it yet, but we will get into it a little bit later, that he got his first EVP of the year now. In London. He also had a very strong Katowice in their other big event win of the year, of course. So he's kind of made kind of like a last minute push.
Isn't Brolin quite aggressive to be a closer? Like I have it in my mind. Like I feel like he's a playmaker, and I have a lot of images where I can see him like being put in fights.
He's
like,
definitely.
How often does he close?
Yeah, that's the point. Like he's definitely somewhere on the outskirts of that role, just because of, as you say, some of his positions are a little bit more aggressive, and that's also why these panel awards can be a little bit difficult sometimes, because you have to go very deep into. Just to explain very briefly how it works, the way that we decide where these players go is we look at each what positions they play on the map. Of course, Anchor is more on the CT side, but opener closer is the T side roles, where we look at their split between roles that tends towards the opening, tends towards the closing, but there are players who play both depending on the map. And so
I think that's Roland.
It just depends on
was
Twist
one
would
of
have been
those
a
very
good one,
tricky ones.
exactly. And as you say now, I think Brolin is also one of those ones that are kind of like somewhere in the middle, but tending more towards the closer one, just because he has used more. If you think of openers in Mouse, there would be more like Assertion.
No, absolutely.
Of course.
He's the pure opener.
Yeah, exactly. So he's tending more towards that, even if he's a kind of an edge case.
I just want to mention, obviously, Frozen started the year very well. It kind of fell off a bit. JL, Major MVP, and Jimpat, I still think is probably the best player overall in this role this whole year, even though he didn't have these like crazy peaks. He has been very super consistent.
He's been very reliable.
Yeah.
There were only a few series, like I feel like I almost count them, maybe 2 series I have in mind where he didn't do his incredible like floor that has level that is so high. For also, what is pretty cool about this list, and I know we have to move on as well, but we have some pretty young profiles in there too, like Zontix, Yempat. Being a closer is supposedly a role that requires a whole lot of self-control and like emotional management as well, these late rounds, and they can actually do it. So, props to them.
Who's your front runner there, Matthew? Recency bias?
Yeah, I have a little bit of recency bias. I do agree that Frozen started 2023 absolutely ballistic. I personally still have a bone to pick with like the last match of an actual S tier event where I feel like he still has that next step to go through as a mega carry, which he's very much capable of doing. But I think Zontix now, between Katowice and London, I feel he's got something to say.
42% of Twitch chat do agree with you, Matthew. So I guess you're
right. You guys
right.
are so educated.
Well done.
Has anybody told you how valid your opinion is?
They picked Zontix the most?
They did. 42% of them. Then it was JL,
Why
30%.
does that surprise you?
I mean, somewhat
Brolin is
surprising.
only at 5%.
There were a lot of
They
people.
agree with me. I love the Twitch chat.
I seem to recall a lot of people had took issue with Frozen last year, so there was a lot of.
I do know. I do know.
Maybe there was some sense of.
You felt
the
guilt.
community,
You had to put him.
No, not at all.
Well, only 8% actually see it as number one. So
I mean, there's the recency bias coming in because he started.
100%.
He started the year very well. Like he was, he would have been in the conversation for like a top 5 of the year. When the way that he started the year, maybe he would still at this point. So it's very difficult to place him out of that conversation at this point because it's been a couple of events where he's just dropped off a little bit, and that doesn't exclude him.
And
all
it's
of a sudden,
the tricky part of what we're doing now. Like, we're doing like a temperature check.
Exactly.
6 months of Counter-Strike, and there's no compared to. You can tell me if I'm wrong, but like compared to the former years, I feel like there aren't that many S-tier events. Like this, imagine your Spirit, you don't do Pro League, you disappear for basically 4 weeks of the calendar. Maybe some people even just forget about your existence for a while. Then you come back in London, you pop off. Some events are so important. The Vitality case messing up in Katowice that has such like. In this context, it has such a huge impact. If you consider the 6 months, missing Katowice is dreadful. But then when we look back at the whole year, then it might have a different outlook. Or, I mean, the tendency can be different.
Yes. Third category we're going to take a look at is Anchor of the Year again. 5 options for you guys to be voting on and maybe agreeing, disagreeing with us. We've got Bit, Flamesy, Yinfa again, Rops, and Zontic once again. So tell me, Striker, how we distinguish from Closer and Anchor. You said it was kind of CT side.
As I said, yeah, exactly. That is actually the difference. T-sided roles will be it's obviously a little bit hard to just determine like an absolutely perfectly functioning team when you take both sides of Counter-Strike into equation. And so some of these there will be some overlap because they do employ different roles on different sides. Like just because you're an opener on T side doesn't make you as aggressive on the CT side as well. And so for us to just exclude them from like not having that distinction would be very difficult. So it is exactly as you were saying. Anchor is about CT side roles. Those would be the players that you would see on the outskirts of maps on either side. Who are going to be passive, generally holding down the smaller bomb site or like the edges of the bomb site alone with some support from rotators and things like that.
Recency bias aside, Jimpat, Zontix. I think that's the current battle that's happening within these 5. I think they have the strongest resume, the strongest performance as well. Bit has been below what I would hope to see from him. I think Flames on the CT side, tad hit or miss.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I really do like what he's put forth on the T side. I think he's had even here in London, moments where he really executed his mission. Like that's what he needed to do.
That Mirage.
Be crazy, open rounds, give your team a little bit of breathing room at the beginning. He did that. I think the anchoring is still something he's got to figure out. Mostly when you put like Flamesy and Apex on the same bomb site, the amount of energy, like City side has to have some sort of patience in it. But no, Jimpat and Zontix, I think, are front runners here.
And when you look at Flames, you don't necessarily think anchor, like in terms of.
Bro, can you imagine Apex and Flamesy?
Exactly.
Can you tell them to sit tight and hold the smoke for a minute?
It is pretty incredible, yeah.
You can't. You can do that. There's got to be movement. Thankfully, Counter-Strike plays differently now. Like the CTs need to have movement and retaking zones and being aggressive. That suits them a lot. Because back in my days, you didn't have someone couldn't drop you a smoke, so you basically had to keep your smoke in your hand for about a minute and 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And that was the role of an anchor. Things are different now.
I will just say one last thing before we go to the next category. I wanted to kind of put a spotlight on Stair as well, just because of some of the people who are not actually on this list, but are just kind of on the outskirts of it as well. I mean, we've seen in Astralis' more recent successes, as they switched to devices, the IGL, and even before that, actually, Stair was the kind of the standout in a very dysfunctioning Astralis. And so he's kind of continued that path, and I think he deserves a big nod for that as somebody who is not expected to be the big guy for Astralis.
I think that's a nice shout out. In-game leader of the year. Time to check in with your favorite category, Prof.
Yeah.
Who is going to be the front runner? We've got Alexi, obviously major champion. Apex without actual trophy to his name, but he's got a couple of grand finals as part of the season. Chopper, Carrigan, and Shuey. Who is the front runner in your eye?
This is a very hard one. I don't know. I think Shui showed a lot, but we also kind of hype him up because he's so young and because of the team being so young and inexperienced. At the same time, they also haven't achieved much on the big stages, right? Then you have Alexi B IGLing to a major in a team that felt like could never win a major, right? It was completely crazy that they did that. So I think he needs to get some credit for that. Kerrigan's the phase year was consistent, but not that many championships as you would expect since Twists left in general. So
and
I don't know.
especially if you consider that they lost the two finals, that's possibly not against Spirit perhaps,
but
at least
smashed,
the major final, that's probably the one that sticks out the most, where Kerrigan, that last map, of course, that's more like individual based as well.
Yeah.
But these are finals that they missed out on, so it's also something that will come against them.
What do you think, Matthew?
Personally, I would probably have an internal debate between Chopper and Shuhei right now. And I do think that something to consider is with Shuhei, we talk to him a lot. And like he does interview and we do content with him and we get to know how he thinks, we get to know how he behaves like as an individual and as a captain. And I think it's easier for us to form this sort of opinion of him as being the strong leader. Chopper is a bit more of a mystery box. Like we have a few interviews here and there. We caught a couple of words in London after the victory, but I feel like I know less about him. I can just extrapolate from how they're playing, what they're doing on the server, whereas with Shuhei you have a more direct connection. So I think that's why we might be a bit swayed. I do think Chopper has the strongest case.
I mean,
right now.
that's also very recency bias.
No, but it's more than that. It's just
this tournament.
These 6 months of Counter-Strike have been so insanely competitive.
Yeah.
Like the fact that all of the big events have had different winners. Now suddenly you have a team who's capable of having Katowice, which we know super elite event, and on top of that, another arena trophy here in London, which had a pretty stacked pool of teams overall. You can argue about the format, but I think in a world that is such small margins, I do think that might be enough right now if we had to close it.
And you know what, Matthew? 58% of the Twitch chat agree with you. That's actually surprising. I thought it would be a bit more of a close affair.
Chat.
But
I won't forget you, Twitch chat.
I sense a theme developing. We had the Spirit players turning up quite a lot in these polls. So
it kind of makes sense because Alexi B's second. Obviously, he came second place here in London. So I think the recency bias maybe is.
We're just like cats. 2 minutes memory.
Yeah, that kind of is the CS
minutes.
community, isn't it? Orpa. 5 options for this one as well. This is quite an exciting category.
That's going to be short.
Indeed.
That's going to be a short conversation.
Yeah, Breaking Manatee, Shiro, Torzi, and Zywoo. Nice to see Torzi breaking in. Like, he's had quite a resurgence.
Short conversation because I was on the list?
No.
No,
actually, no.
If we say any other name, this is going to be objection.
Objection, Your Honor. No, actually, because even I, as the purest Zywoo fan out there, I do think currently no one does it like m0NESY.
Yep.
Nobody snipes like m0NESY. That's just as simple as it is. Like the eye test, I don't think there is even a world in which you can make a case for anybody being over m0NESY when it comes to sniping specifically. He is the god.
And also, if you consider Zywoo was much more of a hybrid, right?
Yeah, much more.
I mean, from what I remember, it was something like 20% of his kills with an op. m0NESY is more towards 30s. 30%, you know, which in these days in CS is actually quite high.
It is,
because a lot of people have gone more towards the hybrid role. So
and he didn't. Like when everybody struggled, when people went from CS:GO to CS2, the snipers were one of the roles that was the most impacted. And you would talk to them and they were frustrated. Everything changed. We don't feel it. For Monesi, he took it in stride. Like he immediately became like a highlight reel with the AWP on CS2. So no, as far as I'm concerned, he gets the crown already now, actually.
Yeah, I mean, imagine being Torji in this company. It's kind of crazy, right? If you look at Broky, Monesi, Shiro, and Zai were around him, and he's like,
is that Blood thinks he's on the team?
What am I doing? What am I doing? So, I mean, it's also great on him to have a little bit of an appearance among these greats.
The kind of funny thing is he deserves to be here. Like he's also had a really good, in all 5 of these players, insane year so far.
So is it Monesi votes all round so far?
I mean,
Any
so
other
far,
objections?
I think so,
Yeah.
Well, if there is recency bias, then Shiro would win that. So then we can actually stress test your opinion. Like if the Twitch chat is out there, if it is just recency, Shiro would win.
No, it's actually not recency. You want to hazard a guess at how many people said Monesi? What percent?
Oh, good. I would say like
98%.
89% of people said Monesi. Then Shiro 5%. So I moved only 3%.
We've already, of course, he only has 3% because Monesi he's like a quasar. He will absorb everything when it comes to sniping. The conversation just doesn't exist at the moment.
Gentlemen, should we take a short breather? And by short, I do mean very short, because when we come back, we're going to be talking about the HLTV Awards, we're going to be talking top 20, and of course, the all-important race to number 1 for 2024.
The world is changing quickly. Shut up. The world is changing, but one thing remains the same. Victories with 1xBet.
Yeah, I wasn't lying when I said it was a short break. Let's dive into the HLTV Awards. Of course, we wrapped up a kind of panel discussion. Prof, can you just give us a quick TLDR of how this is different than the panel awards in terms of like the voting and the selection?
Yeah, I mean, I think we said it like a few times already, but let's just repeat just in case. We're trying to get people to understand. It's like, HLTV decided Monesi is not the best opera. It's like, no, it's literally his teammate didn't vote for him. Like some of these things actually happen, and people call us out. Even players is like, and then I'm like, you look at the votes and it's like, this doesn't really add up to what you're saying, but I can't call you out now because it's private. But okay, we just kind of deal with it. But obviously the HLTV Awards completely in our jurisdiction to decide them, and kind of building on what Striker was saying and how we have been doing the top 20 for since 2010, right? For years now. So just continuing with the same ideas that we have in terms of like consistency, performing at big events and stuff like that decide who the best is in each category.
I'm getting a bit of deja vu because this first category, we just had the debate just yesterday about this Matchu Team of the Year. Right. And there is actually going to be a 6th addition to this, Striker, and for good reason.
Yeah, I mean, this is the big 6 of the year, of course. As Maniac was saying, we have 5 different big event winners, Spirit being the only one who had a couple, Vitality the only one without a title at the moment, but of course they have a couple of finals to their name as well, so it's hard to throw them out of this conversation. It is very close, even if you look at the top, like if probably until this event you'd probably think FaZe it would be the front runner in this conversation because they made the first 2 finals, then they grabbed of course that would be a Katowice and Major, so those are also massive finals, the 2 biggest finals of the season so far, and then they finally grabbed the title in Chengdu. But now that Spirit have a Katowice and another big event, that's 2 big event wins. That's the most out of anybody. So there's definitely a nice conversation to have heading into the second half of the season.
Absolutely. We had a heated argument
a little bit,
before we went live.
Bro, I had to get between Bubsky and Maniac in the green room. It was wild. I was putting on my best bounce.
Striker and I, we bickered just a little bit about, if you had to remove a team from this 6, and he was making the case that Vitality could actually be removed, and I got territorial, of course. I try to protect my ducklings, but then no, I think there's some truth to what you're saying.
Yeah.
I do think that one of the main questions is the weight that we put on certain events,
of course,
and that is something that is again your jurisdiction, at least when it comes to like best player of the year or team of the year, so how you are weighing these events. If you consider again Katowice to be so special, then I think there's a fair thing to say about Vitality completely messing up at that point. That's it. And yeah, for Spirit, I think Spirit might have the strongest case right now.
I think it's interesting to look at, and also from Vitality's perspective, if you look at their peaks, right? Everybody has at least a singular peak with a big event win outside of Vitality, right? Then you think about consistency. Pretty much everybody on this list has had, apart from Navi perhaps and Vitality, has had very consistent results. G2 up until now made every single playoffs even, and of course have a top 4 at the major, so that's also quite high. Have the peak in Dallas, FaZe made all the finals, and until now were very consistent as well, and basically Vitality are the only one who doesn't even have 2 of those. They don't have the peak with a big event win, and they don't have the consistency because of the early exit.
It really is the Katowice stain. That's the Katowice stain, because the rest after Katowice is actually incredibly high level and high result. But when you mess up Katowice as being one of the 2 incredible rendezvous of the year, then of course.
But what I think is very exciting about this year, also about the player race, player of the year race, and the team of the year, anyone from this list theoretically could be the best team of the year.
Yes.
Like there is no one that is lagging super behind. There's some teams that are kind of making a slight difference, but anything can happen. There's another major coming up. There's Cologne coming up after the break, and a few other big tournaments. So anyone can make that up. So a great race from my perspective as tuning into the awards and figuring out who's going to be number 1.
Can I get technical for like 1 second? I don't want to put you on the spot here, Striker, but how much of a difference does it make because obviously we saw Spirit not going to Chengdu, choosing to avoid it, then also denying the invite to EPL. How much of a difference does it make to just choose to not attend an event versus playing there and placing terribly?
I mean, the decision comes down to 2 parts, right? That's their total ranking points gained and the average ranking points gained. And so if you consider the average, at the moment, Spirit would probably finish very high, just because, of course, they didn't play 2 of the events, but every time they played somewhere, they placed very highly. 2 big event wins. They had a quarterfinal at the major, and I think a semifinal in Dallas, right? That would be the 4 big results for them.
Dacia probably
plus Dacia second place, which is, of course, somewhere on the lower end in terms of, it's not a big event. It's like down there with Yala, Compass as like the 2 bottom of the notable events or MVP events. But of course that comes into the discussion, but it is a very simple process. It's just 50-50, your total point gain, average point gain across the year.
Makes sense. Quick maths. And also a quick next category, I imagine, Mathieu, Rookie of the Year. Should we just speedrun this one?
I mean, listen,
right
if you
now?
think we're behind schedule, then that's the moment. That's our opportunity.
This is catch-up
because
mechanic.
Donkey is making history when it comes to rookie year. He's already made it in Katowice. He looked mortal in Dallas, and that's the worst word I'm going to use. Like, he looked like there could be moments where things were getting a little bit complicated for him, but he bounced back immediately in London, snatches a second MVP, which is obviously a very exclusive list. I don't even believe anybody has 2 MVPs currently, so he might.
I mean, he has 3 even.
He's got 3 this year.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go, actually.
Yeah, the losing one.
With Dacia.
Yeah, the Dacia one. Okay, that's the one I didn't have in mind. So he's already on top of that mountain. We should never say never. I do not believe anybody can actually catch up with him in that category. He's made it. He's made history with that.
At this point, I don't know what would have to happen.
I don't know either.
He would have to stop.
my point.
He would have to stop playing, and even then, he would probably get
exactly.
it. Right? That's the point.
Even if we try to think of which up and coming player could join a team, and I don't see no one. There's no one on the radar that is on the level of Donk, Zaiwu, Monesi. That when they were coming up, you heard about them for a while before they broke up on the scene, and I don't think we have that kind of a name now.
Oh yeah.
Waiting. We'll probably need a year or 2.
Yeah, of course, just to round out the HLTV Awards side of thing as well. There will be women's CS Awards, but we sadly just don't have enough data right now.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, and there's not much of a point to announce the frontrunners when we have 1 LAN and a few online tournaments. Obviously, Nigma now, Imperial would be there, Navi, Javelins would be on the list. But other than that, it's who do you really put? The rest is really undefined. So it's really going to depend on who performs well in the second part of the year.
Right, there is a point of contention in the community, isn't there? That's when it comes to how on earth the top 20 is selected. And I think it's time to get scientific, Prof, because we have Harry on the case to explain exactly how it's calculated.
Why do I keep saying Lassie in everyone's top 5?
How do they even decide the top 20?
Good question. The top 20 starts with a committee of me, Peter, and Striker. We're in meetings all year to decide EVP awards at events where we hand out an MVP. Ground rules. We love AWPers and eco-fraggers, especially the ones that save a lot. Also, support players are a myth. You also get extra points for being Danish or from one of our home countries. Events are split into categories based on the ranking of teams in attendance and their prestige. Super Elite, usually the major Cologne and Katowice, down to Elite, Big, Medium, Banana Cups, and then non-MVP events like the RMRs. But it's not just MVPs and EVPs. Year-long statistics are also useful. And no, we don't just sort a big sheet by rating, promise. It's more about contributions to round wins, excessive saving, rating in big matches, and if there is a drop-off versus high-ranked opposition. And spoiler, there nearly always is. Players also need enough sample size over the year. Sorry, Que Serato, but missing events or rarely making playoffs can leave what might be great raw stats with a heavy asterisk. Although high peaks are preferred to a high floor, we also look at consistency. Disappearing acts are punished. With all this in mind, we have an objective, factual, truthful list. Gospel. Don't you dare disagree. See you in January.
Did you wake him up for hibernation just for that, Pro?
Leave, goddammit.
Savage.
I mean, that acting debut. What do you guys think? What do you guys think?
10 out of 10. He's
great.
going to be nominated for the Oscars at EPL, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's already pretty much made the list with that skit. Very nice.
Yeah, it's a huge performance right there.
Did you direct that?
This is a super MVP performance from a Giga Elite event.
And a new awards
HLTV
category
Awards.
is, for the HLTV Awards, Actor of the Year.
that was
Community.
the EPL. What was that? The
Community
Oscars.
questions. There's been a lot of people asking over on all the socials. So it's time to grill both of you guys. First question. Do players who join and pop off after the player break have a chance? The examples they have given, Simple and Perfecto. I don't know whether Simple's coming back, but if he did, could he?
Look, I mean, if it was a Simple that came back in the kind of a form that we know he's capable of, then I don't see why not. Of course, you know, I was talking about sample size earlier, and it's important for you to be at the top tournaments consistently. But if you have half a year's worth of really good results, then of course, I mean, that's very hard to ignore. It's just about, you know, how high you can peak.
Yeah, I mean, it would be possible, but not very likely. I
Not
think.
probable.
Yeah, I think it's realistically for Perfecto, I would say no way. But for Simple, knowing Simple, you always have that benefit of the doubt. Maybe it's possible.
Maybe.
Nobody, off the top of my head, I know that there have been some players who like had a bad start to the year and then had a really good second half of the year, but usually they at least had something in the first half of the year to complement a really good ending to the year and stuff like that. You know, so it's again unlikely, not impossible.
Yeah, it would be a precedent, I think, historically, to not play half the year and end up on the top 20.
Yeah, because you would also have to imagine that in spite of not being active for X amount of months, you come back and you destroy so much that you put your name.
And you're also on a team that is good enough to play all the big events and straight away. So that would be like, in theory, if Simple rejoin Navi, maybe because they are playing everything that's coming up.
Yeah, I mean, if we had Donk maybe 3-4 months earlier and he was doing the kind of things that he was doing at the beginning or late last year towards the beginning of this year, then
6
we
months
would
is
have
long. Like 6 months is long. Like,
6
you're right.
months is a long
Even
time.
like Saibu had famously like slow starts of years, even sometimes when he won it, because the first 2 or 3 months were a little bit quiet, but then you have 9 months where you can rack up points. I feel like 6 is like a step too high.
And
But
typically
also
second half of the year also is a little bit more busy, so it's more tournaments. So it's not even about the time spent; it's more about the amount of tournaments that you play. So there's a world.
Yeah, I guess it might get a little bit more even when we go into 2025 season because the majors are kind of those
so
pillars.
much Counter-Strike.
Maybe. Oh, it's going to be the Wild West. I'm so excited. One more question I think we have time for from the community from Not Delusional Nico Fan. He asked, or she, what factors limit a player the most from climbing higher? Like, are there any stats considered more when deciding where a player goes versus another? I think this is just down to categories, probably.
Categories, how do you mean that?
Of events or?
Of like which award they're being nominated for.
I think is this about the top 20 or?
Oh, that would make more sense.
Yeah, it's probably about the top 20.
If it was about the top 20, I would say, I mean, not being able to do it against, I was talking about this earlier, not being able to do it against big opposition, not playing enough deep into tournaments, that's the sort of stuff that really hurts your sample size in terms of what we can look at. Saving is actually another fairly big one in that aspect. I mean, that's something that Blame F and Frozen both got punished for last year, for example. So that's those.
Objection. No, I'm good.
Go on.
No objection for now. I'm just listening.
London will hate you if you object.
I think just one more question that was in there was about rating 3.0.
Yeah.
I think that was an interesting one, and I'll leave this to Striker to put down.
Just drop the grenade and then run.
I mean, we don't have anything specifically in the works right now, but there's definitely a lot of kind of different things we're looking at in terms of improving the rating. We know that there's some weaknesses to it in terms of economy is completely missing from it. Eco-fragging, that would be another, by the way, another thing that actually does hurt the player's case, but it is fairly difficult for us to track at the moment properly. We do try, but it's not perfect at the moment outside of what you can see on HLTV. So that would be one thing that we're definitely looking to improve at the most, and also kind of just year-long or kind of like constants of the rating.
Yeah, I can say that we're definitely looking, the constants of the rating, that you just slid it in there, but it's a very interesting thing with the change of CS2 and like how Counter-Strike evolves, that some things that are implemented into the rating are, maybe need adjustments. So that's something that hopefully we'll see as a change this year. Let's say this year. Let's say that. And there's also some different things that we're trying to do in terms of player attributes that maybe people will also see shortly enough.
Yeah.
To be sued. TBD.
To be sued. No, to be sued. That's if I decide to, take legal action. For now, we're cool. They haven't said anything incriminating.
Cool? Yeah. Okay. Good stuff. Should we move on to talk about the top 20 of course, 2023? This was exactly how it was rounded out at the tail end of last year. There's some interesting names now when we look at the context of where we are today. Matthew, who do you think is kind of the outliers who probably won't be in the top 20 this year?
I'm not going to say that they won't be in the top 20, but I do think the fall of Robs, probably some bias, even Spinks to an extent, if we were today to project ourselves.
Number one Spinks hater.
I am not going to confirm nor deny these allegations. No, absolutely not. I think he's a great player. But if we were to take a snapshot of 2024 now, I think these three names, Sampayas has had a really rough transition to CS2, and now of course Falcons finally having a little bit of success in Jönköping. Can you imagine, you basically went from being number 6 on the HLT ranking to now playing at the Challenger in Jönköping with Falcons. It's been a little bit rough, and Robs, as we mentioned, far from being a top 3 player right now. I still think he would definitely make the list. He'd be in the top 20, but you would not have the same kind of issues as you had last year figuring out whether or not he's number 3 or number 4. Not currently. Yeah,
it's just not the same player, and it's also hard to say because he's no commenting questions about whether
that was kind of baller though, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was
baller. I didn't think that was baller. I think that was
cleverly.
Weak.
You have to use it cleverly. You can't do that too much.
I thought it was baller because he started off London really well, but then he dropped off. So I was like, okay, it was actually weak. So I just changed my mind mid event because I was like, okay, he's got something cooking. He's gonna improve.
I like the approach. Like I'll speak in the server, right?
Yeah.
That kind of makes sense, but maybe he could have said that. But I feel like no comment is kind of deflecting. That's always what orgs use when they can't say, we are losing our best player, that kind of stuff. So I feel like he can step up the game right there.
Speaking about how everything's going to be decided this year, obviously you've touched upon the MVPs as well. I heard you want to call earlier discussing who's going to be getting that from London. Did you decide on anything?
Yeah, for London we decided it. I would have to remember everything we just talked about because I don't actually have
it was a long discussion.
Off the top of my head.
Yeah, a little bit. I was there.
Yeah, from the top it would have been Dunk, obviously the MVP. Shiro would have been the next in line. Zaiwu I think was third. Then we had JL of course. Then there's one player missing, and then at the bottom is Flames. But I'm missing somebody between JL and Flames, and I'm just missing that player right now.
Okay.
He will come up. He will come up in my mind.
We could look at the MVPs so far this year.
Yes, I think that's important to do because that is super impactful of who is going to be in contention for being super high. Obviously, Donk is an interesting one because won 2 events, got the MVP there, lost an event, still got the MVP there. Hard moment for him, I'm sure, but definitely going to weigh in his favor when you're looking at the top 20 list.
Yeah, of course. And also this is not including the AVPs, which I think are coming up later.
Oof. Yeah, I hope we're going to talk about that too. You can probably answer that question a bit better than I can, but I imagine it is a pretty exclusive list of players who win MVPs without winning the event.
Well, it's obviously with the arrival.
I
was gonna say with the arrival of Simple and Zaiwu, it became a hell of a lot more common.
Yeah, but the list is exclusive. Not that it doesn't happen often.
Right, exactly. I think before that it was something like Issa was like one from a DreamHack Open.
Twist is on there as well. You guys did a tweet of the pictures of everyone. I think was Hunter on there? Maybe I'm going crazy, but
no,
they all look so sad.
He got the one from CS Summit when they lost to a coach and a stand-in.
Oh,
right.
God.
Yeah. So we've had some of these. Obviously, Simple and Zai will probably share 90% of them. Now Dong is probably entering that discussion very soon.
Yeah, you had that with, like Zai. I don't even know if he represents more than 50% of his MVPs are actually level where he lost.
Yeah, a lot of them
which
are,
is
yeah.
kind of mind blowing.
And he's actually smiling on most of them.
Yeah, but that's just who he is. He just smiles. He just vibes, just plays the game.
Pure vibes.
If you love it or hate it.
EVPs.
Yep.
What's the discussion so far for this year?
I mean, we actually have quite a lot of players who are kind of already making themselves stand out. We were talking about Frozen earlier. You know, he doesn't have an MVP because Brokey was in the Chengdu run that they won, but he did start the year so high where he was one of the top EVPs for 3 events in a row. Shiro was on that list somewhere high up. Zershin also had a really good string of tournaments. It was Dacha, EPL, and then one before that I'm forgetting. Oh, Chengdu.
Monesi's up there
before
too.
that, Monesi, of course, had 3 top, I think the very top EVPs, which is also something that people maybe aren't necessarily thinking
first
into account.
MVP is now in Dallas. You know, everyone was talking about
Yes.
him as potentially being number 1, but 0 MVPs so
Yeah.
far. But obviously, he was performing very well. It's just like, you know, G2 not getting past semifinals. It's kind of hard to pronounce Monesi the best player at the tournament if you're not even in the final.
Exactly, you have to be in the final. You were also going to say something about that you guys rank the EVPs.
Exactly.
So if you're like number 7 or number 2, it actually has an impact, right?
It does have an impact, and it's not even necessarily about like the placement inside the
Okay.
EVP list, but we kind of have like a points list where it just goes from 5 to 10. In Dong's case, it actually went up to 12 because
course he broke the scale.
was a bit of a scale-breaking event, but that's generally how it goes. And so at the end of a year, that's also something that plays a part. It's not just, you know, an EVP is not always made equal.
I understand.
But that brings us on to the all-important debate. Who on earth will be making it into the top 3? I think we probably know who we'd be predicting right now, but I'm curious to see who the players thought prior to the Katowice playoffs. Let's check in with them.
Can I say Dong, actually?
I really doubt that he's going to keep the same level as he did in Katowice.
My top 3 HLTV players 2024, I would probably go for Saibu. Can I say Dong, actually? That would be insane if Dong was there. One last player, I'm gonna say Device.
I think Saibu for sure. We put him in there. I'll put in Frozen as a candidate. I believe in him. And then, of course, let's just put Dunk because everybody's talking about him.
I mean, right now I have to say Savu, Dunk, and then the third guy can be a little bit unknown in the sense that we don't really know. But I'm gonna say Monesi because I feel like Monesi as well has, you know, he's grinding a lot, and you can see that he has a very good understanding of the game mechanics already. It might even be Dunk number 1. Who knows? I mean, with the way he's playing right now, he could fight Savu for the title. But for now, it's Savu, Dunk, and Monesi.
Definitely should be Dunk and Zio. And the third one, well, pretty much depends like on how the developers gonna change the game, because if they can make it easier for angle holders, then it will be Nico.
Zaibu. I need to pick Dunk. I need to pick him. Because I think he's really a good player and it's really fun to watch him play. And as third, Nico.
Well, I would say Dunk if he keeps with this form. Saibu for sure, and probably Monesi.
Damn, that's a good question. I don't know, maybe gonna put Zaivu on number 1. Maybe Rob's on number 2 now. To, you know, step higher. I don't know. It can be literally anyone. Maybe Dong's gonna be number 3 if he keeps this up, you know. I think it's hard to say at this point. It's very early into the year. But yeah, I mean, people are popping off. You never know.
Okay, let's put Zaivu. Let's put Frozen. See, I would put Robs, but then they're in the same team. Let's put Zaivu, Frozen, Nico.
Top 3 players of the year. I'll put Monesi as first, and then I'll just go. I'll put Zaivu, and then I'll put Dunk.
Did you put Dunk third just because of this last update, or?
Dunk obviously is very good already, but he needs more like time to prove himself, and I really doubt that he's gonna keep the same level as he did in Katowice. We will see like what's his actual like stable level is.
I mean, turns out Donk didn't need much time at all to prove his level.
No.
Sorry, Nico.
I mean, obviously, we need to put in the context that
Yes.
this was recorded in the group stage of Katowice.
Yes.
And honestly, I think if you asked anyone here, we'd say pretty much the same thing. You'd even be more negative than, more skeptical about Donk's level. He went on in the playoffs. Like, I think after that win, everyone was like, okay, this guy is legit. How legit, we'll see, but he's going to be up there for sure. But it's very interesting to see how maybe some names that are showing up are not really on the list right now.
Yeah, because again, it's a snapshot of how we thought about Counter-Strike in the group stage of Katowice. So of course you're influenced by how 2023 ended, and that's why ZywOo is pretty much the first answer that you get all the time. I don't think this would be the case right now. People are getting a little bit cynical or doubtful about Donk. I think it's crazy how little Monacy was mentioned in that very video, as if we were to do it again.
Magis is like, maybe someone unknown.
It's like, oh, maybe someone else.
Like, I'll go with Monacy.
What do you mean? Like, of course, Monacy. So yeah, it's really interesting to see how we were thinking about Counter-Strike in that moment in time. And this is something that you guys, I mean, I'm not going to tell you how to do your job, but it would be cool to do that, cyclically, like here and there.
Yeah.
Redo that kind of video, and then you could have sort of a temperature check on how the community was feeling about it, the pros were feeling about it up until the event. Could be nice.
We'll dive into our own thoughts in just a second, but Matthew, if you would so help me, look into that lovely barrel of the camera, because that 72 hours for people to be entering the golden ticket competition is ticking, isn't it?
It is ticking indeed. 72 hours. And honestly, at this point in time, if you do not feel that itch, that sort of motivation, that will to come join us in Belgrade to have some fun, and I don't really know, we've been doing a terrible job. There's a link down there. That link is a form you can fill. One fan will win an incredible opportunity, which is access to the HLTV Awards, hotel and flight, and obviously a night of fun with us. So make sure you participate, make sure you put your name in the hat, and it would be lovely to talk Counter-Strike and party together eventually in Belgrade.
And easier if you're part of the industry, Prof. You can just simply apply.
We have already about 20 to 30 people confirmed. So the early invites that we sent out have been coming in. There are also people applying very quickly. So obviously, if you're part of the industry, if you're a caster, if you're an analyst, like some of us here, or if you're, a photographer or an observer, or, work as a player manager, why not apply? And we'll see that we invite the, people that are not only in front of the cameras.
Yeah.
Did you fill the form already, Freya? Did you fill the form? You haven't had an answer yet?
No, not quite yet. Why has it got a response?
Just fell in the spam folders.
Yeah. Well, I'll let you check your mail afterwards. I know you've been a busy man. Because we've got something very exciting to now debate, and I want to fight the top 3 players of the year so far. I think it's very obvious who the candidates are. Donk, ZywOo, Monacy. They've got to be up there, right? So now
you got this correct. You got this one correct.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, what to say? I think we can just say we've never had something like this before. This is an insane level of competition. Just having, I don't know even which word to use for these guys' ability in Counter-Strike.
No, I agree with you. I actually don't believe it ever happened that we had 3 actual real contender for that title, that we weren't sure about who was going to win, and that the level was so high. Like, maybe you can dive back a decade in Counter-Strike and find moments where it was a little bit more open, and then like Nico had some strong second, third finish, so maybe you can make that argument about that year. But what is so unique is that we have 3 extraterrestrial right now. Like that is what's happening in Counter-Strike. And even though I think my job title would have me put ZywOo up there, I actually don't think that's the case at all. I think I think the second quarter of the year was just enough for him to justify the name being on that graphic. That we didn't actually just do hey, that's a Donk versus Monacy race. Like the second quarter.
Yeah, definitely could have been.
It could have been, absolutely. If it wasn't for the second quarter, I think I would have been. So now we actually have this.
Yeah, I was just going to double check my list of EVPs because he didn't have an EVP up until Dallas.
I mean, listen, Katowice was a catastrophe, and then the major, we don't really know what the health situation was. I mean, that's a little bit murky, and I don't know how to sort of tiptoe around that whole thing because we don't know all about it. But when you have a Katowice that is a fail as a team and you individually miss the major, then that is obviously very hard to come back, which in essence shows how high he is in general, like the contrast of his skill in general, that we still have his name on that list in spite of these 2 failures. But yes, it's really, I think Donk and Manesi are ahead currently.
I have just one little tidbit of information. You know, if you look at some of the biggest individual years out of anybody, of course, you'll look at two names, and that's going to be Simple and ZywOo. And the biggest KPR that these two guys have in their best years, which would be Simple in 21, and I think ZywOo in 20. I'm not sure about ZywOo's year, but Simple was in 21. It was 0.88 for Simple, and it was 0.83 for ZywOo. If you look down at this trio down here, Donk is at 0.94, Manesi is at 0.83, and that was 0.87 if I see correctly. Yeah. So you can see that these three guys are already matching the highest level of the two biggest names we had in Counter-Strike Global Offensive in terms of, or even surpassing that level in terms of a CS2. So that's something.
That number for Donk is actually mind-blowing.
He is an insane fragger.
If we play the conversation of GOAT, of Rifle, then I think Nico still has probably the strongest case.
Of course.
But I don't think there ever was a player that was doing damage the way Donk is doing now. Like we're reaching new categories of like damage and input on the server with the Rifle. And it's not always just like a one-tap highlight. No, but it's just constant, consistent damage, spray, multi-kill, always having the +1 in any trade that is. We've had, again, the example here in London. Like the amount of effort you need to put on a server to trade him, it's almost like a losing game. Like it's you have to do a 2-for-1. That's how strong and how much damage he does. So this, in and of itself, is completely crazy. And I'm happy that he bounced back in London. I did not believe 1 minute that Katowice was a smokescreen. I knew he wasn't going to keep these numbers because that would just be nonsensical.
That would be ridiculous, yeah.
But I knew from the eye test that he was something special, and I'm glad we get to see more of him.
Wouldn't it be historic if, he's obviously the front runner for the Rookie of the Year conversation as well, both Rookie of the Year and Player of the Year? Do you think it's likely?
Yeah, I mean, not historic.
It's been done before.
I see.
You wonder, I would like to have you the record.
The lawyer there. Obviously, ZywOo did it in his first rookie year. It's kind of a similar story in him playing in the AAA until he reached like 18 and then went into Vitality.
High school. He had to finish high school.
Yeah, and then played like 2 events at the end of the year with Vitality, I think. And then the next year he was on, right? And kind of, so it's a similar story, and I know Striker is going to mention coldzera, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know whether coldzera would have technically applied as a
rookie,
because I don't remember at what points in 2015 he came into, would have been in Luminosity at the time. So I'm not sure if he would have technically been a rookie in 2016, but I think he was somewhere in that conversation, if we had made that call.
Kind of a trailblazer, I guess, in the scene. Give me your best argument for maybe not why ZywOo should be, but how could he maybe overtake Donk, Matthew? This is your time.
Look at the
I knew I should not come to this event. Like, I knew eventually it would come down to this. No, I mean, I do think that it is irrefutable that whether or not he's got a dysfunctional system around him or whether or not he's got players around him that may or may not do what they need to do, he himself has displayed a lack of ability of solo carrying very important matches. And I think this is really what you're aiming at, and this is the base of the critics, and it is one that I have nothing to fight against right now. I think he has a tendency to kind of turn off and become slimmer and slimmer and slimmer as the game progresses. Like because these ratings, even in this series, are always kind of incredible, aside from the EPL, which was just a tragedy of a game for everybody, and he included. He always had like this crazy good first map, and then the second map is a bit more tempered, and he disappears on the third one, which in and of itself is kind of an interesting theme to kind of dig into. I think pressure is an angle, but it could also be like a lazy angle. There could be some frustration to it. Could be the team falling apart as well. But this is where he makes a difference, because the rest of the numbers are so high that in spite of these sort of drop off, he's still in terms of average, he's still up there. I think in average, he's the second highest rated player of the year. Donk is ahead, but with a smaller sample size. So the rest of the body of work is just absolutely incredible. But you gotta have to do that consistently. You gotta lift trophies.
I think that Dallas Grand Final for me is still such a epitome of this like Manesi versus ZywOo debate, where the first map both were fragging out, and I don't think you can say like one was better than the other. It's like both just putting out this insane level, right? But as the match progressed, right, especially on that third map, and then in that one round, that whiff,
the miss on Manesi,
where he had a free kill that would have maybe allowed them to get a bit deeper in the game. He misses there, then Manesi just like wide swings him, kills him, and things go wrong, and that's kind of what everyone is calling out about ZywOo. Is not that he's a bad player. I mean, some people are kind of claiming that, which
Of course,
is crazy.
why not?
But he's a great player, and he played that whole tournament. He's been playing amazing, but m0NESY was just better.
Yeah, I think you can at times see him be visibly uncomfortable with like the eye test, which is a very rare thing to say,
Yeah.
right? You wouldn't really say that about Simple. Maybe m0NESY had an EPL that was a little bit below, but still, you always get like this sharp feeling when you're watching them. ZywOo can have moments where it's a little bit rougher. I do think another angle is the CT side. I think there's a fundamental problem in how Vitality play their CT side. It's been displayed again here in London. Jesus Christ, some of these were absolute catastrophes. And if they or ZywOo has figured out how to do it on the T side, because if you ask me, I think he's the best T-sided player there is in the game right now. I don't think anybody else, and the stats corroborate that as well. Like, he's the best T-sided player there is. But the CT side, they just haven't figured out. m0NESY is the best absolute example of how you use someone's talent to have the biggest output on the server. The way G2 let m0NESY play on the CT side is a thing of beauty. You could study that. You could make podcasts about it, videos. The YouTube analysts out there have the time of your life because they have figured it out. It's not the case for ZywOo. Sometimes he looks pedestrian on the CT side, and he isn't pedestrian. So there is something that needs to be reworked, and that maybe would help us not having these conversations in the future.
Yeah, I do think that obviously ceiling-wise, he's shown several times this year that he has the same ceiling as those two guys. Like, we saw Donk in the final of Katowice. That would probably be his best series of the year so far. m0NESY in that phase series that they won in Dallas, I think it would have been.
ZywOo in Pro League versus FaZe, like a 239 rating.
Yeah, exactly. So that's some of these peaks have been at the same level as these other two guys, but it's just doing it on a more consistent basis. And
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So who is leading striker? Now I've used all my time about ZywOo. People are already pissed about it. Who's actually in the lead now? I have my own opinion, but you can kickstart.
Look, we haven't actually made any sort of a call between these top three. Like the purpose of this is more just to create kind of a conversation temper check, right? So we didn't actually sit down and say like, okay, who do we think is now at the top three? My personal opinion at the moment, and that might come into play by the end of the year when we look back at this year, would probably be Donk, just because of the sheer impact he has, which is insane just in terms of whenever he has a pop-off, he will always win the round because of the role that he's in, and he usually does. He's such a multi-kill machine, and it shows also, we have the statistic in the back, which is impact in round wins,
Yeah, the
like
conversion,
kills in round
like
wins.
kills into conversion, yeah.
That as well, and he's got some insane numbers in that, and and that's something that actually ZywOo is also very good at usually, but the level of just sheer impact Donk has in terms of actually directly causing Spirit's round wins without even a question. You just kill two people, you get into the side, and the round is over. And that's happened so much with Donk that it is very difficult to argue against at the moment.
3 MVPs as well.
Yeah.
3 MVPs.
I just want to put in one thing that's obviously hardcore viewers and watchers and readers of the top 20 know, but some people might not. The fact that he's a rifler versus two oppers, while it is impressive from like a pundit point of view, it doesn't really make any difference in terms of the top 20. It we don't value that differently. It's kind of the approach, you are where you are for a reason. Kind of, if you're a striker, you're going to strike more goals, but that's probably because you can, get goals.
Get more opportunities.
And ultimately, getting goals or getting kills is what wins rounds and wins tournaments in a very simplistic way, right? There is more to it, and that's why we have so many of these factors, but rifle or op doesn't make a difference.
And he picked up the op in London, so maybe there's a new arc coming. Like, there's a new ceiling that we didn't know, secondary on Dust 2.
He would be amazing with it if he picked it up. Like, you just know it.
That was, I don't know, did they win that map? That was the Dust 2.
I'm trying to remember.
That's the only one
they
lost.
Yeah,
no, that was a win.
Yeah, they did win.
And that was huge. That was so crucial, actually. Just like adding something new to the playbook. And I was actually talking to our manager here, Bogdan, who's like, did he call this or did his IGL call this? And I would actually really like to know who came up with that. But I don't think it's a set strat, really.
I know. If you have Donk, if you have m0NESY, if you have ZywOo, you let them do what they want to do.
Yeah, yes. Pretty much. Yeah.
Well, 58% of Twitch chat would agree that Donk is the player of the year 2024. We're only halfway through.
Far.
Followed by m0NESY with 39%, 3%.
No, that's fair. I think it's fair.
Is that the 1, 2, 3 for you, Matthew?
The current as it is, yeah, probably. If I had to make a temperature check, I would slightly edge towards Donk, because of the MVPs and the trophies and the impact that you're talking about, I think m0NESY would be a clear number 2.
Yeah.
And I'm just happy Saiwu is on that list right now. Like,
Yeah,
that's
one
good.
little
For now, that's-
question
that's
though to kind of address, because obviously m0NESY came to Blast, played one series, was eliminated, had a bad rating. How is this gonna affect the top 20?
I mean, it's not something that we can like necessarily ignore, just because it's more from the perspective of course, Donk and Zaiwu did have a great tournament. So from that perspective, it's just more like he missed out on a chance to have another event alongside these greats, you know, rather than that it's going to hurt his case necessarily, you know, like if he had played the whole event, you know, he could have had another big EVP, or he could have gone for the title and beaten Donk and Zaiwu to it. So eventually, in somewhat indirect way, it will obviously hurt him in the discussion.
Well, I think that wraps up our discussion. Halfway through the season, I want to extend a big shout out to 1xBet and Dariana Events for hosting us here in London. Prof Striker is kind of the masterminds behind HLTV Awards Show. Anything you want to say to the viewers at home halfway through?
You go first.
No,
We've kind of said a lot, haven't we?
Yeah, we have said a
talked a
lot.
lot.
All I want to say is, yeah, I'm very happy to talk to teams and players that are interested in attending, that would like to, you know, figure out how to make it work. That's great. Any partners or different, you know, organizations that would like to get involved, we're happy to have a chat about that, and we just want to make a very cool event for Counter-Strike and celebrate together.
Matthew, I know it has been a grind of 6 months for you.
I'm tired.
I'm going to ask you to do just one more thing for me, pretty please. If maybe the viewers have accidentally had this on mute for the entirety of the last 90 minutes, give us a quick elevator pitch of why they should be tuning in or maybe coming to the award show.
You know what? I think I have an idea.
What?
So you wonder why you should come to the HLTV Awards? I'll tell you very simply. 1, we are celebrating the legends of our game. We are marking the very best and writing history of 2024. 2, it's chock full of amazing people for 24 hours. Funs, laughs, maybe even some business talks, who knows. And finally, we got the best after party.
Changing, but one thing remains the same: victories with 1xBet.